Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark, the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1937 drama, The Life of Emile Zola.
Tearing my heart out to see you living like this, and now it must end.
Hey, well, you're probably right, and I thank you for your honesty and your candor, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, even if no one cares or watches, because I'm having a great time reviewing all the best movies ever made. If this is your first time joining me, I'm reviewing every movie in this book, the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. The Life of Emile Zola was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, which at the time was the most Academy Awards ever for a movie. It won Best Picture, it won Best Supporting Actor for Joseph Cinderkraut, and Best Writing Screenplay. It was nominated for Best Actor in a Lead Role for Paul Muni, Best Director, Best Writing Original Story, Best Art Direction, Best Assistant Director, Best Sound Recording, and Best Music Score. I'll just talk a little bit about these Academy Awards. It won Best Picture. I think looking back at it today, critics would say that this is one of the worst Best Picture winners. Not like the bottom 10, but of the 90-something that have won Best Picture, I think they rank this in the 80s somewhere. There's actually 4 films that came out in 1937 that I thought were better than this movie, even though I really did like this movie a lot. Those 4 films are Pepe Le Moko, Stella Dallas, Make Way for Tomorrow, and The Grand Illusion. Of those 4, I would probably say that Stella Dallas or Make Way for Tomorrow would be my picks for Best Picture, because I don't know if Pepe Le Moko or The Grand Illusion qualified as foreign films. But I think all 4 of those were better than this film. Now, also for Best Actor in a Lead Role, that year it went to Spencer Tracy for Captain's Courageous, which is a movie that I just reviewed. And even though Spencer Tracy was the heart and soul of that film, I still think that Paul Muni was better, and I would have given the Academy Award to Paul Muni. Now, this is my 3rd film I've seen of his. The other 2 were Scarface and I Am a Fugitive on a Chain Gang, and I think that he just has so much range. The characters he plays are so different. In this film, he plays a person who is progressively aging, and I think that he just does a fantastic job with it. He gives a rousing speech at the end, which is one of the more intelligent speeches that I've ever heard. In fact, it's hard to follow because it's very intelligent for me, but I thought he did just a really good job, and I would have given him the Best Actor award over Spencer Tracy. Now, by winning Best Picture, it showed studios that audiences would embrace intellectually driven and issue-based stories. It centered around the real-life French writer Émile Zola and his involvement in the Dreyfus affair, a huge late 19th century scandal involving a Jewish army officer falsely accused of treason. This movie highlights the themes of injustice and wrongful conviction, abuse of government power, and the importance of speaking truth to authority. The message carried extra weight in 1937 as fascism and anti-Semitism were rising in Europe before World War II. The film softens explicit references to anti-Semitism, but still has a powerful message of standing up to injustice, and it legitimized the biopic as prestige cinema. Now, one of the big critiques of this film, I think one reason why today critics don't look at it very fondly, is that it does soften anti-Semitism. One of the main reasons why Dreyfus was arrested and convicted of treason and being a spy was because he was Jewish. This movie, there is a reference to this. I've watched a couple reviews of this film before I reviewed it, and a lot of people say that there's no reference to that in this film at all. There is a very subtle one where if you blink, you will miss it, where the officers are mulling over a list of people who could be spies, and they come across Dreyfus's name, and under his name it says Jew. And then right after you see his name and Jew, you hear the guy saying, "This is the one, this is the guy." So it's subtly trying to tell you that it's because he's Jewish, but then it never goes back to that at all. You never hear about it. So if you miss that part of the movie, you're not going to understand that it's anti-Semitic and that he was arrested basically for being Jewish and wrongly convicted for being Jewish. Another criticism of this film is that the opening, like the first half an hour to hour are not needed, and that people wish it could just be the trial, because the trial is really the heart of the film. I'll say that the trial is the best part of this movie. It's where all the best acting is. I would say it's where the action is. It's where it's fast paced. It's very emotionally driven. But I would not say that the first half of this movie is not needed. When the movie opens up, we're introduced to Émile Zola and his friend. They are extremely poor, living in poverty, and Zola knows that if he can just publish a book, that he will be popular and he'll be rich and everyone will love him. Now, he eventually meets a woman who I believe is like a prostitute. He sees these people in the streets who are poor, and he decides he's going to fight for the poor and the downtrodden and the people who have really tough times in life. So he writes a book called Nana, which is about this prostitute, and it becomes a bestseller. He has more money than he ever knew what to do with, and eventually he starts writing about the government, about the army, anti-government books, basically criticizing them. And the word gets out to the army, and he's basically told to stop because the army basically hates him because he continues to criticize them. Now, if we fast forward a little bit ahead, there's a spy in the ranks of the army, and they need someone to blame it on. So, like I said, they bring up this list and they see that Dreyfus is a Jew, and they immediately put him in prison, and later they will convict him of being a spy, which he is wrongfully convicted. This part was extremely being a father. So he is a father of I think 2 or 3 children, and he has a wife, and he's basically goes to jail on this island, secluded away from his family, never able to see them. And this really hit me hard, I would say, the fact that his kids were so young and that he's going to miss these very important years of their lives because he was wrongly convicted of this crime. It was kind of emotional for me. I was very struck by it. These type of things affect me now more than they ever used to before I became a father. And all I could think about was, wow, he's going to miss so many milestones. He's going to miss so many happy times. His kids are going to miss all this time of not having a father. It's probably going to impact their lives as well. But anyway, he ends up going to prison, and it's a big scandal. At first, Zola doesn't really care. He has made a lot of books at this point. He is very rich. He doesn't need to involve himself in this. But then his friend, who he lived with in poverty when he was younger, they end up meeting together. And his friend, basically, who still is poor and living in poverty, says that he thinks that Zola has changed, that he no longer fights and sticks up for the downtrodden and the person who is wrongfully convicted of things. Because he's rich, he's kind of separated his life from that. He doesn't know about that life anymore. He doesn't care about that life anymore. Basically, the things that they said they would fight for, he has stopped fighting for that, essentially. Which is why I don't think the first half of the movie is throwaway, because I think it really sets this part of the movie up where he meets with his friend again and they have this conversation, because I really feel like the rest of the movie is driven by this. The reason why he goes on this crusade is because he remembers that these are the people that he used to stick up for, and this was what he dedicated his life to, and this is what he's passionate about, and this is what he wants to do. And you would have never known any of that if you hadn't had the first half of this movie. So, Dreyfus's wife ends up approaching Zola and says, look, I don't think anyone else will listen to, I don't think anyone will listen to anyone but you. You have the ability to write amazing books and amazing letters, and when you talk, people listen, essentially. And my husband is not, he didn't do this crime. Here's a bunch of evidence. I have all these notes and things and written documents, and I can prove to you that he didn't do it. Zola at first doesn't want any part of this. He doesn't care, really. He has lived his life. He's old now. He just wants to live in silence and solitude with his family, and he doesn't want any part of this. But off camera, he kind of reads all these things that the wife provided Dreyfus's wife provided, and he decides he is going to go on this crusade to try to free Dreyfus. And he writes this very famous, it's like a letter or pamphlet called I Accuse, where he accuses the army of covering things up. He accuses the army of knowing who actually is the spy. But at that point, the army has themselves in a bit of a jam where they already have someone convicted and they don't want to admit any wrongdoing. They don't want to admit they were wrong. So they all conspire to not reveal who really did it. They all conspire to let Dreyfus rot in a cell by himself, even though he's not the one who did it. And Zola says, I know that you guys are going to come after me. You're going to arrest me. For slander, I think. But that's what I want, because I want there to be a trial and I want all of this to come out, essentially. So they do arrest him and they do have a trial, and it's a very heated trial in which you can tell, just as, I mean, you already knew, but as the audience, you can definitely, if you were in that courtroom, you could probably tell that there's a cover-up going on here. Whenever Zola's team is able to ask questions, the judges do not allow the questions to be asked. When the other side asks questions and bring things up, it's perfectly fine. So you could tell they're fighting an uphill battle here, where they're just not allowed to reveal any evidence that they have. And Zola ends up giving this rousing speech about how this isn't about him. He didn't have to do this. He was living a very comfortable life, and this is not something that he's doing for himself, but he's doing for the country, and he's doing for Dreyfus. And you should not allow your army or the people who are leaders of your country to cover things up. You have to be the little person has to fight when they know that there's injustice, even if it seems like a fight that's not going to work. If it's an impossible fight, you should still fight anyway, essentially. Now, they convict Zola, and they say he has to go to prison for a year and I think pay $1,000 fine. He is basically told that he should go to London and hide out, where he can still write books against the government and he can still talk about things that are happening, and he could try to still keep this case and Dreyfus's name alive while he's gone. That way he's not rotting in prison for a year and not able to speak his mind. He ends up doing that, and while he's in London, I'm not really sure how it happens. I don't remember. I think he writes a book detailing some more information about what happened, and eventually there's some new officers in charge, and these new officers are not involved in the cover-up, and they end up basically arresting the officers who were involved in the cover-up. They realize there was a cover-up, that there's evidence that there was a cover-up, and Dreyfus is eventually released because he's exonerated, because he's not the one who did the crime. And Zola is planning out his life. He's planning out other things he wants to write and things he wants to do, and he ends up dying of carbon monoxide poisoning in his house. That's basically the movie. That's the entire thing. I thought, like I said, Paul Muni was exceptional. The makeup, I don't usually talk about makeup and costume design, but from the beginning of the film, where Muni looks really young, to the end of the film where he's aged quite a bit, they do an incredible job with makeup and costume design. I'm actually surprised. I don't know if those categories existed, but I'm actually surprised if they did that this was not nominated for that, because he really does look like a completely different person by the end of the movie. You would not even know that this was Paul Muni behind all this makeup and behind all this like facial hair and stuff that he has. The other actors around him are really great. Joseph Sindekraut, who won Best Supporting Actor, phenomenal job as Dreyfus. He doesn't come till later in the movie. I didn't think he had that much to do. He does do a really fantastic job with the little screen time that he has. I don't know about Best Supporting Actor. I went and looked at the other Best Supporting Actor nominees, and I haven't really seen them in anything. So, sure, it's fine that he won it. He did a really good job. The storytelling is great. Even though I do think the first half of the movie is not unneeded, I think this movie's still a little bit long. Maybe it could have been a little less in the beginning. Maybe there's a point where it like goes through all the books that he's written, like on a conveyor belt of all the books that he's written, to show that he's like a very well published, very well rich author. Probably could have done away with some of that, but all in all, I thought this movie was very well done. I give it a 9 out of 10, and I hope you join me next time when I review a movie called Jezebel. Thank you. Have a great day.